Um, Good evening to Italy. Good evening, Mirko. Mirko Porta is joining us this evening on Wolfi's Talks, and we're speaking all about saddles today. So thank you very much, Mirko, for joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you to you guys, and thanks for being here and gave us the opportunity to speak about our products and our lineup and how much the saddle is important. That seems to be a really easy topic to speak about, but at the end is one of the most complicated, and that can brings your cycling to an honorable level or to a top level ride and training if you choose the correct saddle. So it's wonderful for me to be here. So
very good. Thank you so much. You're with Selle Italia as a product manager and racing manager. So you're dealing obviously with all kinds of pro riders, and you're dealing with all the teams, and you just told me you make all the sponsorship agreements and contracts and so on. And when I'm thinking about Selle Italia, it's just a synonym for saddles. And I think it's quite amazing how we're thinking of bicycling, we're thinking of Colnago and these things, but I think Selle Italia is standing out for me in an amazing way, that everybody who speaks about saddles, and it has been, I think, 120 years. Exactly. You're in the industry and making saddles, and I'm always amazed and humbled how it changes when you see timeless products like a saddle, like shoes, chairs, or sunglasses, that you think everything has been developed, but then you come along and you make a completely new design, a new product, and it must be very, very difficult to have these products always again reinvented.
Exactly, especially because we have some design that has worked since years and years really, really well, like the Flight, like the SLR. And so all our customer, the old one and the new one, wants to maintain those kind of design, those kind of shape, because that suits perfectly their bike, first of all, and their ergonomics. And that's the really, really difficult problem for us, because we have to renew or reinvent those kind of shape, giving something new with new technology, but maintain the same feeling. So it's really, really interesting and difficult in the same time. And it's really also important to know and notice and highlight that our sciatic bones and ergonomics are not going to change probably soon, and is not changing since years. So probably what is changing are the bikes and the way we use the bike. So we have to adapt some important shape like Flight and SLR to the new bikes, and new way of fitting and new way of use the bike, like gravel, for example, yes, or triathlon that is getting popular and popular every year. So yes, it's really, really difficult, but it's a big, big challenge for us. And the more here we have on our background, the more it's difficult. So it's a good challenge to face.
Very good. See, I had the pleasure to visit your company in Asolo in Italy. Yes. And see what is happening. And when sometimes you look at the bicycle and there's so many different components, and I think as a consumer, you don't really realize how much work goes into a saddle and how much, and it's actually quite humbling when you see production of saddles. And we have a very nice video, which is quite a long video, but we looked at it several times and we thought really it's worthwhile looking at the video to really make people understand what Selle Italia stands for. And I think you can see at the beginning, we see the factory. So I would like to ask Will to start the video, and we want to share with everyone the 3 minutes, sort of almost 4 minutes of the video, but I think it's really worthwhile seeing the craftsmanship and the art of making a saddle and what you learned in the last 120 years. So we want to start the video now and enjoy. It's a fantastic video.
Enjoy.
very much. I think this is fantastic. Yeah, you must be very proud to work for such a company, which with such a history. And I think seeing how many races you have touched and you have worked with, and how many millions of people you make happy every day with good saddles. I think I really enjoy this being in the bicycle industry, helping people to get fit and in shape. But I think you have been a very important part of this in the history. So can you tell us a bit about the history of Selle Italia when it started 120 years ago?
So it started and founded in Milan from a Milan family in 1897, sorry, and was bought by the Bigolin family, the actual owner, in the 70s. So from that point on, so in the 70s, it changed and started to become an international brand. So it came out from Italy. So it was spread all around the world, from US to Japan and etc. And it became an international brand,
Yes.
completely international brand with the international riders and big names, as you know. So from Pantani, Indurain, you know, and then from those riders to the latest champion, so like Mathieu van der Poel for us, that is our flagship man. So it's really, we are really proud about that. Yes.
I saw that you produce 3,000 saddles a day. This is unbelievable. Yeah. How many people
Yes.
work for Selle Italia?
So not here, just in Oslo, 46 people in the group. So we have, you know, Selle Italia, Selle San Marco, and ID Match, and then we have all the production side that has more, even more people to produce the saddle. Then we have some automatized process. So some line go themselves directly, and then in some saddles there's a lot still of handmade processes, and on other not. For example, we have apart from road saddle other accessories like bar tape, but then we can produce also, we produce actually also city bike saddle, leisure saddle. So not only racing but also saddles for everyday use and commuting, for example.
You said you brought some samples for us as well, some historical pieces, because obviously in 120 years you have dealt with the best and most famous riders in the world. So you showed me some things before.
Absolutely. So for example, this is the turbo signed of Bernardino. Yes. And you can see that this was, I think, in the history of cycling, the first saddle with the name of a rider on. Okay. And the first rider to be sponsorship directly by a saddle brand.
Saddle company, okay, fantastic.
This is one of the example. And here we have a special model of Mirko Pantani that comes directly from our museum that you can see in the video that you showed before. Yes. So with the original pirate logo.
Yes, fantastic.
And then we have as well one of our biggest success, that is the Flight 1990. That was the first saddle to win the Olympic Games in mountain bike. Okay. Just to let you know how was famous already, even in mountain bike, this kind of saddle.
Yes.
And this was our biggest success for sure.
I started my business like 1988, and then 1990, the Flight saddle. This is an icon, and I think it really needs to go in. Is it in the Hall of Fame for cycling? Because I think this is really an absolutely iconic product, and it has changed the riding style. It has changed the look of bicycle. I think it was just unbelievable. And was this the biggest success of Selle Italia, that product?
It was, and it is, because now we have just relaunched the new one. So still there's a huge demand of the model Flight. So a lot of people coming from the 90s still ask for old Flight for their road bikes, but still to have a renewed Flight, in this case the Boost one that I have here, that has carbon rail, shorter, and all the new technologies that we have on our site for their new bikes. So still there's a lot of demand for product with the biggest name, so SLR, Flight, and etc., etc. So it was a big success, yes, but still is a big success for us.
Very good. We have a second video, and we want to show the video which you had for the launch of the Flight, of the new Flight. And I asked Will, please, our graphic designer who's doing an amazing job, please, if you start the second video, just so people get an idea about the new flight.
Listen, it's the sound of history.
He's going for the line now.
Vamos, vamos, vamos. Partito come una scheggia. Meno di 3 km alla conclusione.
Here, in this room, since 1990.
Oh, this is absolutely fantastic.
Il est toujours là, le maillot jaune. Il l'a perdu virtuellement.
Testa più atteso.
We've covered so many kilometers. How many champions? Too many to tell.
Cavendish is the world champion. 150 metri, ormai lanciato lo sprint.
It's not what we've done, though. It's what we're going to do. Can you see the future? We can. And it's great.
Attacco buone. Swift is passata.
To do the business.
The new Flight Boost. The tradition of greatness continues.
Fantastic. Yeah, really, really good looking saddle. And I like the new logo. I think this is so much work going into logos and designs and so on. And obviously, we're working on these things as well. But I think that the new logo looks really amazing. Tell us a bit more about the flight and about the story, the development, and what you think about the new flight.
So the flight passed from the 1990 models to the 2000 model that was already more flat shaped compared to the 1991 that was a little bit more waved, so was still the same length. And the flight in 1990 had a big success because this was the first saddle with the visible rail. Because the previous saddle were all without the possibility to see the rail. And this was also an headache to fix on the seat post as well. So this was the biggest success for this kind of saddle, and the lightness, because it was really already pretty light. And then the 2000 model was already quite flat like the new one. And then we passed it through the short one version that is more light, more good looking, because you are able to see the shell as well here and here in this zone, the new logos, and etc., etc. So on two sizes, with all and without all. So maintaining the same ergonomics was the main goal, but providing even more choices to our end customers. So two sizes, closed and open, and then the rail and price level, depending on how much you want to spend. But to be honest, this is a real success for us, because renewing a so much famous name like Flight was really difficult for us, and it took more than 1 year to rethink completely the saddle and to bring to the customer something really improved.
Yes, and I think you really did. Well done. I think the team worked really hard, and it's great. But you know what most people have, they buy a new bike, and we've seen obviously now in the COVID situation, we see a lot of new people coming to the sport, and now they're buying a bike, and maybe they have a saddle, and now they have maybe some kind of seat issue, and they're looking for a new saddle, and they want to get maybe a better saddle than they have on their bike, or they just want to get an improvement. What's the best way forward? How is the best way to find the correct saddle for your bike?
Okay, so first of all, in my opinion, is to get a proper bike fit. Okay, because if you are going to choose a different saddle and spend some money on that, because you want even more lighter and more performing product, you need to be sure that you are well fitted on your bike. Because if you are using the wrong stem size, the wrong frame size, or the wrong position, even on the correct frame and the correct stem length and handlebar, probably you will use the saddle in the wrong way.
Yeah.
So likely your feedback after the use of the correct saddle in the wrong way will be not so good. So first of all, the bike fit is super, super important. And beside that, choosing the correct saddle in terms of width. So the widest point of saddle, okay, so a small or large size, and the correct cutout. So without cutout or with a big cutout will make a difference. So the most common problem on the saddle normally is the sciatic bone pressure problem. So you will feel a lot of pressure in your sciatic bones, and this is something that normally is related to the size or a wrong shape. So a flat shape compared to a waved shape, and the soft tissue pressure. So you are using probably a wrong saddle, you are rotating a lot your pelvis, and then your soft tissue get in touch with the frontal zone of the saddle. And if you don't have any cutout or pressure relief zone, probably you will feel the dampness as the lowest of the problem you can feel on the saddle for hours and hours until even worse problems. So choosing the correct width and the correct channel or cutout is the most important thing before buying a saddle.
But how can you find out what your measurements are and what is the best way forward there? Because you don't really know how far is your seat bones apart. You don't really know, do you need a cutout? Do you need without a cutout? So what's the best way forward there?
Yeah, so first of all, dealing with the dealer, so on the field or in the shop, first of all, a good interview by the dealer and then a good answer about the problems and the experience that has the customer on his bike is the best thing to tell and before choosing the saddle. And then we have developed years ago some instruments to choose the correct saddle in less than 30 seconds. So we have developed a tool that is the Smart Caliper. That is a digital tool that can measure the grid trochanter distance, leg volume, and there's an inclinometer inside and can measure how much you rotate your pelvis in a stand position. And then this can give you directly an exact response in 30 seconds if you need an S size, so small size, large size, closed saddle, or with cutout. Okay. In general, we, just for information, we passed more than 3 years developing this. Yes. Before the digital version, we had a manual version of the Smart Caliper that has produced nearly 70,000 measurements before the digital one. And with all these measurements, we were able to produce the digital one. And imagine that with this tool and our bike club fitting system, that is a complete machine to do the bike club, we have more than 100,000 people around the world measured. So every time we develop a saddle, we have a lot of data, a lot of so man or female, large size, small size, and the inclination of the pelvis, and divided per zone all around the world, and we can develop better products for that. So the first thing I will normally suggest to a customer is to go in the shop, get measured by your trusted dealer, check your size, check your previous saddle, give the information to the dealer, and then change to a new saddle that can improve your experience.
Okay, very nice. So you measure the outside of the hips, and from there you put a correlation on how far the seat bones are apart, and then you recommend the saddle, correct?
More precisely, with the caliper, opening it, we measure the grid trochanter distance. That is the zone of the femur bones get attached to the pelvis, the more external zone. This zone is strictly and scientifically related to the ischiatic bones distance. We choose to measure that zone because in that zone, on the outside of the body, there's no grease normally, and then you are able to push and measure directly the width of the bones.
Yes.
That's why that measurement, instead of other measurement, is really more precise.
Yes.
And so we started with directly X-rays from people, and we started development directly in the hospital, checking X-rays and measuring all the pelvis and the sciatic bones, and we create an algorithm that is inside this tool in order to measure and give a precise and scientific result to our customer.
Okay, and then you measured the angle, what somebody can bend forward, and with the angle you can see how far can somebody bend forward on the saddle, and that would change how the pelvis rotates. And then you would recommend the cutout if they rotate a lot, and you would create or you recommend no cutout if they don't are not able to rotate as much, correct?
Exactly. So a saddle with a big cutout normally is for rider that rotates a lot. Okay, so likely they will have a drop between the top of the saddle to the handlebar higher compared a person that rotate less than their pelvis. So likely their soft tissue get in touch with the front of the zone often compared to a person that not rotate a lot. So in this case, a pressure relief zone or a cutout will help for sure. On the other side, we are still offering in our range a saddle without cutout, because there are people that have a less aggressive position on the bike and they want more zone in order to reduce the overall pressure over their gluteus muscle and pelvis in general.
And then you offer saddles in different widths. So you have the smaller version if somebody has a smaller pelvis, and you have the wider version. And that's, I think, something quite important. What do you think is the biggest mistake people are doing when it comes to saddle? What is the biggest issue you feel they're doing?
So the biggest issue is to choose the saddle because it's good looking. Because normally you should choose the saddle that fits you. Because if a saddle is good looking but doesn't fit you, because the saddle is personal. So the problem is not the saddle that is not made correctly, but it's not the saddle that fits you well. So imagine to run a marathon with the wrong shoes. So it's quite impossible. And then at the end, it becomes a nightmare instead of a pleasure of riding and training and racing. So first of all, you should choose the saddle that fits your body and your ergonomy. Second of all, stiffness is not something that fits everyone. So also in the pro peloton, I have riders that prefer more flexible saddle and other riders that want super stiff saddle. The same for the amateur and for a customer. We have customers that prefer full carbon saddle. They are super comfortable on that. There are persons that are more sensitive to the sciatic bones and they prefer a more padded saddle, even sometimes with gel addition and etc. etc. So this is, I think, the big mistake. And also to put the saddle from the old one to a new one without measuring the BRP or the anatomical center of the saddle, and measuring and bring the new saddle, measuring from, for example, the nose or the back of the saddle, or the saddle are different. So the measuring here and here brings to different measurement on your bike.
Yes. I think you have a special point on the saddle where you kind of put the center of the saddle, which is interesting because obviously now with the trend of short nose saddles, if you would take an old saddle off with a long nose and then you put a short saddle on, then I think the saddle would move quite a bit forward. And then suddenly you have discomfort. The saddle is too wide between your legs. So I think that's a very interesting point you made there, that obviously the adjustment of the saddle is quite important, that the height is correct. Otherwise people may be moving forward too much onto the nose. And I think that's quite interesting. Yeah, a lot of people obviously looking in when they come and they're new in the shop and they're looking for more comfort, they're looking for a much wider saddle and they're looking for something quite soft. They come and they push the saddle with their thumb, but obviously it's completely different happening when you sit on the saddle. But do you think softer saddles work better, harder saddles work better, or what's your recommendation?
So it depends. It's really difficult to suggest padding to a customer because there are customers that are really more sensitive to padding. So they need more padding and even gel in some cases.
Yes.
And there are customers that prefer full carbon saddle. Especially, we saw this also for endurance riders that stays days on the bike. And there are riders that are able to do it on full carbon saddle, and rider that needs a endurance version of the standard saddle like Flight and SLR. So it's really, really difficult. So in some cases, for riders that want a super stiff saddle, having too much padding would be for them something annoying, or that creates a lot of movement for them, and for other, vice versa. So, and it depends as well on which terrain you are going to ride. So if you're going to ride on gravel, for sure you will have more vibration compared to road, and which kind of bike you're riding, and the way you are riding. So if you are super stretched on the bike between handlebar and saddle, probably you will have your total weight spread on the complete bike system. If you are more relaxed as position, you for sure will have more pressure on the back of the saddle. So probably in certain cases, having more padding and gel for sure will help. But what it changes is the correct size and the correct shape for you.
Okay. Do you see a different demand for e-bike? Is there something different? I know you develop saddles for e-bike slightly different. What do you change with an e-bike saddle?
So we made, for example, a special here, let's say spoiler, in order to, even on the standard model, in order to get more the sensation of safety, because the e-bike normally are chosen by a rider that probably never rode a bike in training. They are going to do a lot of kilometers, especially on rough terrains, for example, e-mountain bike. And they want to be more fixed and to be more relaxed when the motor starts pushing. Okay, so this is something that helps them to stay more fixed on the bike. But in general, they are not too much related to the weight, because they have the motor, it's obvious. So they are more interested in comfort. So in general, the e-bike saddle are generally more comfortable.
Yes. Do you think it creates a little bit more discomfort because they don't push as hard on the pedal, that they sit more on their backside, let's say, and they don't push as hard on the pedal because they have the engine to support them? And if you're really going and riding fast and hard on the bike and you push hard, you almost lift yourself off the saddle. That's maybe a reason why you put more comfort and more cushioning in the saddle.
Also because for sure your riding position will be not so stretched. Because otherwise, if you're able to ride 4 kilometers at 40 km per hour, you will not choose for an e-bike. So in general, that saddle are more wider with more padding, because the people that do 20, 30 kilometers with the motor wants to be comfortable. So in general, are more heavier and more comfy.
Yes. So obviously you're working as well with a lot of the pro teams, and you're very close with all the pro riders. So what feedback do you get from them, and how do they choose the saddle? You do the same process, you measure them, and you have some good stories from the pro peloton you can share with us?
Yeah, so we do the same process with the normal customer. So every time I go to a training camp, I measure every rider. So I check all their feedbacks. I check if they have any problems or negative feedbacks about their position, etc., etc. But I will do the same process I would do with a normal customer in a shop. So nothing special. And as a normal customer, a pro rider need as every pro rider has his own saddle, not as customization. So we provide them our lineup that all our customers can find in the shop, but they have the possibility to choose from different bike fitting setup, for sure. It's obvious. Different saddle, for example, for TT and road bike, and then they can choose their own shape. So they have a complete range where to choose, but the choice process is exactly the same. Apart from certain cases that you can have riders that has big issue coming from years and years ago. And so in that case, they ask for some customization that we are able to do handmade here in Italy. But I have probably on 4 World Tour teams, and then all the professional teams, mountain bike elite teams, probably a couple of cases, no more than that. So we are able to work with all our riders from all around the world with standard saddles.
Very good. You're speaking about triathlon, and obviously this is for us a big market. We have one of the biggest triathlon clubs in the world here. We try to buy. It's a big growing community, and everybody's looking for some extra watts. And you gave an extra watt on the bike.
Yes.
You named your new triathlon saddle Watt, and we have again another short video to introduce the saddle. Because I think especially for Dubai, that's a super interesting product for all our triathletes and as well for all roadies who like to sit really in an aggressive lean forward position. So Will, if you don't mind to start the video, please, for us. Thank you.
Sure.
A lot of times that means to travel away from my son and wife, and of course that's not always easy. You're leaving them at home, but you know, okay, this is something I need to do to actually perform.
I like to surround myself with really good athletes or athletes who are better than me. When you're able to test yourself in adversity, I think that's what helps you get stronger mentally.
I try to get rid of the word fear. It's really important for me to step back and just think of and realizing that I'm really I'm doing what I was dreaming of.
Very nice. Thank you, Will. The saddle is really fantastic. We had really good success, and I think really you looked at many different points, and I like obviously that the rails are a little bit longer to have more adjustment. Is this feedback you get from the pro riders that they need more adjustability to get their position more and better dialed in?
Yes, not only on the rails, but also especially our success for that product is the leg room that you can have on the side, and the padding, the softness, and the overall shape. So this saddle was produced with the collaboration of Patrick Lange and the BMC team that are one rider and a team sponsorship by Selle Italia since a couple of years. And we passed 1 year of development with them. So with several, I started with the first saddle of Patrick Lange, and we provided him our Iron Evo, that was the previous model. And then I made several optimization until full carbon mold and etc. in order to reach the new product. So this was really 1 year of development, and this saddle is really working well. And just for the information, Katrina Matthews of the BMC BFIT team won the Ironman Gdynia this week. Okay. So with this saddle. So she was super happy about that. She won the 100 miles TT in UK as well with this saddle. She was super comfortable on that. So we are really proud to come back in the triathlon fields really with our strong products.
Yes. I like the details that you have a cover, which is an anti-slip cover to give really good stability for the saddle. Or I like that little detail, the red little rubber when you wreck the bike, that you protect the rail and that the bike stays in a secure place. That's really good. And I'm sure when you're riding 90 or 180 kilometers on your bike, you have a lot of time to think, and you don't want to think about an issue with your saddle. So I think you did an amazing job, and obviously working with these athletes is very helpful, I'm sure. Yeah, well done.
Yeah, absolutely. So in this saddle, I think there's a lot of cool feature and tech details that seems to be easy to be managed, but are really difficult. So this is a real nice and cool detail, just because you are putting your bike sometimes on the rack and you want to save your carbon rails and you want that the bike slips down. And then you have here a small lip of anti-slip cover and the shape is flat in order to have the possibility to move forward and back until you find a correct position. And then what is more important for me is that the widest part of the saddle is completely on the back compared to other saddles, because you are going to use probably the most part of the saddle from the center to the nose. So the goal was to have a bigger and wider nose in 50 millimeter, okay? Because 60 sometimes creates some rubbing problem inside, and a thickness higher padding compared to standard road saddle. So here there's a big padding with a density that is lower compared to normal road saddle, and a big cutout until the end of the saddle. So these are all feedbacks coming from the development with Patrick Lange and BNCV team. So we are having a lot of success with this, not only on the Triton feed, but a lot of feedbacks from our end customer that they are super happy about that. So we are more than proud.
Do you feel it's more difficult to develop a road saddle or a triathlon saddle?
A triathlon saddle. Because the triathlon saddle and sector or discipline is an extreme way of using the bike. So you are riding a lot of kilometers in a narrow position that normally is a really uncomfortable position. So imagine that a customer has to ride for hours and hours just in the front of the saddle is something really, really difficult to manage. And then it's impossible to produce thousands of sizes and shapes for all the customers. So normally the goal is to find a shape that can fit not the 100% of the rider, but a lot of them, probably the 80-90% of the rider. That's why a small size in the total width, a medium width of the nose, and a flat shape can fit more rider compared to other shapes. So producing a TT saddle in terms of softness, stability, room leg here, and being able to have riders, pro riders riding that for hours and hours was really, really difficult for me. But at the end we succeeded and we are really happy. We are really happy.
We see maybe from triathlon going into the road sector, we see the short nose saddle, because obviously the triathlon side was always using a bit of a shorter saddle. And now we see this as well completely adapted into road cycling.
Exactly.
What was the main motivation? Was it as well a UCI rule that people wanted to sit and put the saddle a bit further forward? Or what do you think is the real highlight of having a short nose saddle?
So it started from the UCI rules. So the pro riders was demanding to have the most forward position with the saddle, but there's a limitation, okay, between the bottom bracket and the end of the saddle in the front zone, and it started everything from that point. But then at the end, we have discovered that apart from the weight, because so it's obvious that taking out material brings a lighter saddle, okay, and these saddles that are shorter are even more good looking, especially on smaller sizes, for example, for women bikes. And it's more easy to find the position where the ischiatic bones should be. So the correct sitting position is where the saddle is wider, okay, and not in central zone. So taking out a part of the saddle helps the customer to stay more seated here and find their position more easily.
Okay, very good. Very good. Interesting. Yeah. We've seen obviously in the last years that more people use these shorter saddles. Do you still have a demand on long saddles, or is this completely gone?
It's nearly completely gone, but still we have some models like the old SLR, old Flight still in our range. But on performance range, a lot of customers are demanding for short saddles. So at the moment we are trying to pass to everything to the short nose saddle. On commuting side, for example, or trekking saddles and etc., the saddle is still long, let's say. and the customer are not demanding for having a short saddle in that segment. So for sure, the standard saddle will continue to exist probably on other sectors.
Mm-hmm. If you, in the past, we have seen obviously that when it came to cycling or to tire size, that we went from 20 millimeter to 23 to 25 to 28.
Exactly.
There's a big change. What have you seen, and what do you expect to come in the future for saddles? What's the new things we can expect? Do you have any important changes you have seen in the past years, and what can we expect from Selle Italia? Can you share anything with us?
So it is a good question. What I can expect is, first of all, the sustainability. Mm-hmm. So I expect in general from cycling more sustainable process and products. Mm-hmm. And we are working on that. We have just announced a new saddle, sportive saddle, performance saddle that is recyclable and that is made without the use of glues and etc. And that this is a green saddle that is handmade around here in 20 kilometers. So it's like, let's say, a 0 kilometer saddle production. Yeah. And so first of all, this one. Second of all, some process that can bring more to customization. So the utopia of the saddle is that every person has his own in terms of stiffness, padding, rails, and shape. And now this is impossible to produce at the moment. So I probably expect some process, low-cost process, in order to produce your own custom saddle. Yes. So I think this could be the good goal where to push. Anyway, we have some certain shapes like flight and SLR and nose that works since years. So the statistics says that these models are still selling a lot, and there are a lot of old customers and new customers that are using those shapes. So this means that this shape more or less fits everyone. So just having the possibility to choose the correct size, so small or large, and the correct out with a correct shape, this works. So probably at the moment, there's no need to have a complete customization of the saddle, but we will see. It's a good thing to think for the future.
Mm-hmm. I think as well, obviously, we're in Dubai and we're always looking for the best possible solution. We at Wolfi as well looking for the best possible solution for the customer. And if you could dream and make the best saddle possible, what would you do? Would you go fully customized and then have the option maybe in the future that people really can choose everything? Is this something you're planning in the next years to have a fully customized option?
Yes, it's something that we are thinking, I'm thinking too, but still probably the way of production and the cost will be still too much high. So I think probably that will be easier to have a sustainable products compared to a full custom products. But then also in our range, we have on the same saddle, on the same shape, different sizes, different padding, different with gel, with different rates. So we have still a huge offerings without thinking to a full customization. So the more offering we have and well communicated and explained to our customer towards our instrument in the shop, towards the ID match experience that every customer can do on our website, I think is quite enough at the moment. So probably also producing still lightweight saddle could be a good challenge to face for the future. So having a saddle like this one, that is the SP01 Dallara, that is co-produced with Dallara, that is automotive brand that produce shell for Formula One and high-tech cars. Is a saddle that is super lightweight, full carbon, and that lasts kilometers and kilometers. So producing this kind of high-tech products is still a challenge for us. Yes. And being still on the top of the saddle producers as lightness is not so easy. So for sure, we are going to maintain the lightness as our focus with the comfort as well.
Very nice. Mirko, thank you so much. We learned a lot about saddles. It was fantastic. I think 120 years, we can really tell there's a lot of experience in it. And I think really speaking from so many years, I'm in the industry, Selle Italia stands really for the best saddles in the market. It's really outstanding what you've done. And I think you made really, really many cyclists and pro cyclists and amateur cyclists very happy with your product. So please send my regards from all of us to the team, and keep up the great work. We really appreciate it. And we're very proud to be your partner in the Middle East region. We're looking forward to many more exciting products, and yeah, wish you all the best and stay healthy.
Yeah, you too, guys, and thanks for having me in your talk. It was really interesting, and I hope to have another chance in the future to talk about other topics with you, and I will be available every time for you to speak about saddles and how to choose them.
Thank you very much. That's very kind of you. On the 23rd, we're speaking to a good friend of mine, Steve Smith from Castelli, and I'm sure he has some great stories as well to tell. So stay tuned, and stay tuned at Wolfi's Talks. And thank you very much for listening. Thank you, Mirko.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.